welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel. We're back doing a pod, not in person this time. It feels like it's been back-to-back pods in person. I can't get away from Sam, but we are here to talk a little bit about the Watford news surrounding the football club at this moment in time. Sam, you were at a very special location recording a very special video, another very special video. Don't reveal it, but how did it go?
Went really, really good. Keep your eyes peeled for it. Obviously, like and subscribe to WD18. And yeah, it's a really exciting and quite a different bit of content as well. I think first time we've ever done something like this as well. So yeah, hopefully it will drop in the next couple of days and keep your eyes peeled.
Keep your eyes peeled, subscribe to the channel, as Sam said. If you do go on to enjoy this video, please do leave a like, comment down below your thoughts on anything we discuss here today. And of course, if you're listening on audio, we've had a lot of people message that they are listening now just on audio. Make sure you're still watching YouTube. But if you could drop us a 5-star review on all the podcast platforms, it does really go a long way. On today's show, we're going to be touching on a bit of Daniel Jebbison for the last time in a Watford shirt. His loan has been terminated. He's been recalled by Bournemouth. We're going to touch with Daniel Batman, who has had some injury news come in following the incident at the weekend at the end of the Sheffield United game. There was reports surrounding Ryan Porteous potentially being unhappy. I'll get Sam's thoughts on that one, and then we'll just quickly preview Fulham and actually look ahead to a free weekend, because obviously the FA Cup is this weekend, and then a busy Watford end to the January month. So stay tuned. Let us know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below, and we'll get straight into it. And let's touch on Daniel Jebbison, Sam, to start with, because I think we can all agree as Watford fans, it's been a loan spell that hasn't been successful. It's had a lot more negatives than positives. Is it a case now where, for all concerns, this had to happen, and it had to happen now? He's been recalled by Bournemouth and his loan at Watford's been terminated.
Yeah, I do think that Tom Cleverley would have wanted to try and give Daniel Jebbison a longer opportunity potentially, and at least have him sticking around to the end of the season, because up until last week, it was unlikely that he would have played for Bournemouth at all. But I think there's two circumstances which have really pushed the ultimate termination of the loan deal. The first of all, which I think is the big one, is Bournemouth's two strikers, Evan Nilsson and Ines Unal, both out for a while. I think Evan Nilsson's going to be out for 3 or 4 months, and Ines Unal's going to be out for the rest of the season. So Bournemouth are currently without a first-team striker, which is why Jebbison will probably go back there. And well, you'd actually imagine, I was speaking to a Bournemouth friend, if he is fit, he'll probably play at the weekend in the FA Cup third round for them and go straight into it. But I think also, to be honest with you, after those social media comments at the weekend, obviously a lot of heat was on it. Tom Cleverley was asked about it in his press conference today as well. I don't think there was much coming back from that. Young players and social media, it's something that players are going to have to adapt to and learn about a lot more in terms of how to deal with things. But Jebbison ultimately should not have been, like Cleverley said. I think if there was a like in there, all right, you can sort of get it. It's his whole team. Easily people can like things by accident as well. But the comment on Brooks's post as well, who was the match winner, was infuriating, I think, to be honest with you, because that was almost a conscious decision to post that. Look, for me at least, he was, the loan couldn't have gone much worse. I put a tweet out earlier about that, but yeah, but best of luck to him in the future. And I've also said I've never seen a player more destined to score against Watford in his life ever. I can just see him, see him going out on loan to the Championship next season and scoring against us.
Does he go above Andre Gray in that pecking order?
Well,
because Andre Gray actually did it.
Look, Gray scored 2, and he's actually been released by Plymouth now, so that could be our striker replacement there. God, imagine that. He actually came out this week as well with some interesting comments, didn't he, on the Fozcast, talking about how unhappy he was at Watford, which, well, I think we could all see that, to be honest with you. But some interesting comments in there. So, yeah, probably make sure to go and have a look at that chat between Ben Foster and Andre Gray as well.
It wasn't much of a surprise to me, really, when I listened to it. But what was your take on his comments?
It wasn't much of a surprise. I think obviously when we saw going, he was on the Fozcast, then I think those comments would have been expected. I would also quite like to say, to be honest with you, that while he was right, I think in terms of the culture, we still see to an extent elements of the culture that he was speaking about there. I'm not sure at times Andre Gray did himself too many favours in terms of being favourable amongst the Watford fans. I talk about that in terms of his attitude on the pitch at points. I talk about his antics off the pitch. We're not going to go into it now, but in terms of breaking the COVID rules, I clearly remember didn't do him any favours. So, yeah, I think often in football, while Watford does seem to be almost a common underlying factor in why certain moves don't work out, sometimes I think a player has to look at themselves as well. And Andre Gray's case, I don't think he did much to help himself with his move to Watford.
On Jebbison, just to bring it back round for people who didn't know the context of what Sam was mentioning there on the social media comments, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the post, but basically after the Sheffield United defeat at the weekend, Jebbison liked their post with the full-time result. And then as Sam mentions, he commented on the match winner, David Brooks, with a comment just showing support for him, which look, some people would argue that's just him showing support for his mate. What is interesting, though, is the Sheffield United fans really don't like Jebbison. I mean, we saw it in the reverse fixture. So for him to make a conscious effort to go out there and engage with the post probably said all you need to know. Tom Cleverley, in his press conference today, described it as a bit of stupidity with his social media activity. But as we mentioned, the season-long loan for Daniel Jebbison at Watford has ended. He's been recalled to Bournemouth, as Sam mentioned. He's probably going to be in the picture, obviously, with their injuries to Evan Nilsson and Enes Unal as well, which means they have a lack of attacking options. Sam, do you think he would have been recalled had those injuries have not come through? Do you think there's an element in that? Because a lot of Watford fans are like, look, just cut your losses in January and try and get another striker in. If those injuries weren't the case at Bournemouth, do you think Jebbison still would have returned?
I actually don't think so, to be honest with you. I think there were discussions probably going on there already in terms of whether to cut the loan short. But I think it was almost the straw that broke the camel's back. I think those injuries, I think, would have ultimately pushed that move onwards. Like I say, I just think it was the timing of both of those, the announcement of the injuries as well as those social media posts. I think it was probably the right time for everyone to move on. But no, I actually don't think if it was for those injuries to Evan Nilsson and Unal, I don't think he would have moved on. What do you think? Do you think it would have happened anyway?
I don't think so, because Cleverley mentions again today about how you don't become a bad player overnight. And Jebbison is quite clearly a player who is lacking a lot of confidence at the minute. Again, not because he hasn't had the same amount of injuries, but Watford's record with loan players from Premier League clubs, again, I just go to like Courtney Hawes, who came with a lot of expectation, didn't deliver. I know that was more down to injuries, but he was doing quite active on social media. We've just had a couple of recently where we haven't maybe just hit the mark. And look, Jebbison came in with a lot of expectation, probably to his detriment in a way, because I think a lot of us thought he'd be a lot better than he has been. If we look at the statistics, granted, he'd argue he didn't have a real run of games in the team, but he played little more than 7 hours of football for Watford. He didn't score, didn't get any assists in any goals. And if his last notable action came in the 2-1 home defeat against Cardiff on December the 29th, when he came on as a substitute in the 58th minute and then missed that big chance in front of the rookery. So, look, Sam, probably the last thing to say is, how do you think he'll be remembered in a Watford shirt? Because look, one thing to remember with Jebbison, he isn't actually that old. He's only 21. Well, that is young in football. So, look, for him, I mean, I wish him all the best. There's no hard feelings. I just don't think it was going to work at Watford. It just didn't feel like the right fit pretty early on.
Yeah, I don't want to say because he didn't have much of a legacy anyway, but I don't think Watford fans will hold him in too high regard, particularly after those social media posts. I'll keep going back to it because that's ultimately the centre at the moment of football media, and you can almost gauge. I know it's not everything what social media, what that almost says about a player or how fans feel about a player, but if a player is not helping themselves on those platforms, then that's often going to dictate the mood. So yeah, I don't think particularly fondly, not just for on the pitch, but also for off the pitch actions. Like I say, wish Jebbo all the best in the future. Be interesting to see what he can do, because like I said on the video when he did come in, there is definitely a player there, a manager like Iriola at Bournemouth, and they're flying at the moment. They're talking about potentially going into Europe, and their scouting has been unbelievable in the last 18 months, 2 years. And you don't end up going to Bournemouth unless you've got something about you. So yeah, interested to see what the future holds for him.
And what does the future hold for Watford, Sam? When you look at that January market and whether we go in now for a striker, do you think that forces Watford's hand now to go out and get someone in on loan on a free agent? The man that we've been linked with quite heavily is Kelechi Iheanacho, the former Leicester City striker, Nigerian international as well. That one has just been rumbling on for the last month or so. I think that started at the start of December. We've got into January now. Do you think this forces Watford's hand?
Yeah, 100%. There's not enough numbers in that area or enough quality. Vacuum Bio is an option. We've spoken about him enough on this channel, but you're just not going to get those consistent numbers or performances from Vacuum Bio. Mama Dumbia as well, bit of an unknown quantity. We hope to see him against Fulham tomorrow night, but could we see a bit more of him for the rest of the season? Both of those players, like it's just too hit and miss, isn't it? We don't know what we're going to get from them, and it's a huge risk going into the rest of the season if those two are our only striking options. We're going to have to sign a striker and someone who can come in and hit the ground running as well, because I think we know it's a big weakness in this Watford team, and an area that we also going to have to look at is the goalkeeper now, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll get onto it in just a second. I wanted to bring up Cleverley's comments, if you can see on screen there, on the transfer window. This has literally just come out before, just before we started recording. Tom Cleverley has obviously done his pre-match press conference for Fulham against his former head coach at Watford, Marco Silva, which is crazy to think that that's happening. But Cleverley said, it's my job to identify where we feel like we could strengthen. I expect us to be active and proactive to try and do so. Obviously, in January, it's not as easy as that, and all the clubs around us are in the same boat. As a coach or manager, I feel like you're a little less involved in this window because the season is still going on. In the summer, you've got June and July where you can be a lot more involved in this process. But for now, we've identified as a club where we can strengthen, but it's more in the hands of the board, this one. Sam, your thoughts on those comments from Clevs?
Yeah, I think that's. It's interesting. I feel like that the club have posted those comments as well. I think I've said this before as well. It's all eyes on Gino Pozzo now, isn't it? Where can this Watford team really finish this season? Because particularly after the last few results, we've lost 3 games in a row. We're sort of caught in this in-between space at the moment. Are Watford gonna almost dwindle away into fizzle out exactly into a mid-table, lower table finish, which, don't get me wrong, at the start of the season I 100% would have taken, saying that we'd be in relegation battle, or I don't think we're too many players away from potentially pushing for playoffs, and that ultimately does lie with Gino Pozzo. It's interesting as well if Cleverley has identified which positions he wants, if Gino Pozzo will listen to that, because we know previously with head coaches they've identified players and positions and haven't been listened to as well. So yeah, it's all eyes on Gino Pozzo now, and I just hope he backs Tom Cleverley because I think he deserves it based on the starts of the season we've had.
Yeah, let us know which positions you feel we need in the comment section below. Striker is obviously the big one. I think a central midfielder, potentially a left back. Some people have said even a goalkeeper with the situation. That kind of leads me on to the news regarding Daniel Batman, who will undergo surgery on his ankle ligament injury that he sustained after or just at the end of the Sheffield United game, meaning he's set for a 10 to 12 week spell on the sidelines as he rehabilitates following that procedure. Now, I've actually done a very similar injury. I'm not saying that, and it's not an easy, not in the same context, and not on the same professional level. I don't know. I didn't mind. I think I was playing football as well, but I ruptured my ligaments, and firstly, it is excruciating, and number 2, the rehabilitation process is not nice at all, and he's going to have a lot better rehabilitation process than me, which is basically just putting my leg up and hoping it heals. But the point is that Dan, it's not an easy rehabilitation, especially because you got to think that's his balance as a goalkeeper, how sort of he has to spring off to different directions, and ultimately your ankle has to be tip top for that to be a conversation again. So look, Sam, when you, I guess, look, firstly, we wish Dan well because that is not a nice injury to sustain. The second thing, though, if we're looking, as Tom Cleverley saying, being proactive in the transfer market, is that a goalkeeper position we need to look at in this January as a sort of stopgap? Or do we have someone in Miles Roberts who's come back into the picture? He's been out on loan at Partick Thistle in the Scottish Championship. The fans have taken him really, really well. He won a couple of Player of the Month awards. Reportedly, he was brought back to then go out to a Scottish Premiership team. Ross County were rumoured, but they've just extended the deal on one of their goalkeepers. So what do you do here? Bond comes in as number 1, Roberts as number 2. Do you send Roberts back out on loan and bring in another goalkeeper? If you were Tom Cleverley, what would be your preference?
Wow. First off, spot on with that. Best wishes to Dan with the recovery. I saw some pretty bad comments from Watford fans, to be honest with you. Stuff that I thought was bang out of order. Listen, we know Batman has struggled at times this season. We've spoken about his performances plenty of times on here, but like you say, it's an excruciating injury that didn't realise the severity of it at the time. Neither did Yasser Larousse, actually, who tried to treat it for cramp if you watch the video back, which I'm sure did not help at all. But yeah, best wishes to Dan, and he's a human being, and yeah, hopefully he has a speedy recovery. In terms of what Watford do next, though, it's going to be interesting because I don't think we're going to see Miles Roberts play, at least in January, because if he does play for Watford, I think it means he can't go out on loan again, a bit like Daniel Jebbison can't go out on loan now again for Bournemouth. So I think what could happen here is we could see Jonathan Bond given 3 or 4 games now in the next few weeks. I'm looking at the Fulham game, the Cardiff game, Derby, and I think it's Preston are our next 4. We could see Bondy play across those games. And based on how he performs in that and the situation based on that, I think they'll make a decision on whether to keep Bondy as number 1 with Miles Roberts as number 2, or sign another goalkeeper, Bondy as number 2, and send Roberts out on loan. I just think it's too soon and too much of an expectation to throw Roberts straight in as number 1, because he was playing in the 2nd division in Scotland. That's what equivalent to potentially League 2, National League. And while he was really, really good out there, it's a huge step up playing in the Championship. And that's not me saying he can't do it, but I think it's a big risk going into the second half of the season with our hopes on such a young goalkeeper. What I do, to be honest with you, is, like I just said, I'd judge Bondy on the next 3 or 4 games, and based on that, decide whether we need to go and sign another goalkeeper.
Well, I think also, Sam, I completely agree, Ari Roberts, because he's 23, I think, Miles, and as a goalkeeper, that is really young still. As someone who's getting first team football, I think almost another loan would be beneficial. But maybe is it a case of just keeping him for the next couple of weeks, see if we can get maybe a free agent in. Even the likes of an Aurelio Gomez and Almunia, someone who has been around a big club and maybe isn't getting the game time, but can we maybe poach them and they drop down to the Championship and they just bring a level of calmness? I think that's probably what we've been missing, particularly in that goalkeeper spot. And look, Bondy, I hope I back Bondy to do well when he's come in this season. I thought he was really good. I thought he was unlucky not to play in the Luton game because he had that run, didn't he, before the international break of 4 games, came in, did everything he needs to do, made some good saves, then was dropped out the team for Batman, who clearly wasn't fit. And I remember at the time thinking that's a bit of a strange move from Klebs. But having said that, look, will the club look at it and go, and I know a lot of fans are thinking, can we go out there and get someone on loan or a free agent? Now, I know Fraser Forster was someone had mentioned a lot of times, but is there anyone available? I'm just going to think on my top of my head of a keeper who's available at a big club. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I've just had a brief look at the free agent list. To be honest with you, I'm not too sure on many of the names. One of them, the only 2 that I'm really familiar with here, one is Keylor Navas, who we would definitely not get. He was at Nottingham Forest at the back end of last season. And the other one who potentially is slightly more realistic, again, I'm not sure how well received he'd be, but Loris Karius as well, obviously infamous for that Champions League final with Liverpool, who
was also wages, though, right?
Yeah, it's the wages which are the big problem. But I think if you're a free agent, particularly someone like Karius, who's still almost repairing his career, you have to be less fussy. I'm not too sure if he's the right answer for us, but that's potentially someone who we might look at in the free agent market.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see the developments on the goalkeeper spot. One thing's for certain, though, is Dan Batman's out for the next 10 to 12 weeks as he recovers from that ankle ligament injury. Speaking of sort of transfer activity, Sam, Ryan Porteous was the subject of a couple of articles regarding his future. Now, to be honest, I'm not sure how reliable the source was, but it basically suggested that he wasn't happy with his game time at Watford and potentially would be looking for a move. I mean, cleverly, he's basically come out today and said it's not true. I mean, look, the manager's always going to come out and say it's not true, but that did just seem wild, like a wild rumor that came out of nowhere. What was your reaction to it, Sam?
Yeah, out of nowhere. I think it did there was a more reliable source after the original one, which I think came from somewhere in the Netherlands. The Daily Record then reported that Rangers were interested, I think. unless I misread the article. But I think there was also shouts that Millwall could go in for him, or QPR as well. I've seen around social media. Completely out of nowhere. I do think that there is a chance potentially in the summer that Ryan Porteous could move on. But I don't think in this January window. I think we're quite short on centre backs as it is. I think we said it in the QPR reaction. We recently did a video, 5 players Watford should sign, and in retrospect, I can't believe we didn't actually look at the centre back area in too much depth. So yeah, an unlikely one to happen in this window, I think.
Yeah, the report that suggested that Rangers were interested because they're lacking a couple of defenders at the minute. There was also the line that Hull have made an offer for him. Look, well, I'll trust Cleves' word on it. If he says it's not true, it's not true. But as I agree with you, Sam, I wouldn't be surprised if Porto was one to move on in the summer, maybe just because he has been here since the start of 2022 when he joined from a free. From Hibernian, so look, that might be one, or it was a small transfer fee anyway when he joined there. So look, we'll see on that one. Any other news we wanted to mention, Sam, before we look ahead just briefly to Fulham?
No, not that I can think of. I think we were linked with a winger from Liverpool, weren't we? I can't remember his name now. That's just
yes.
There are a few Championship clubs are chasing him, I believe. His name's just escaped me just now, but I think he's a winger. Interesting that we're looking at that area, if that is true, because I actually thought that was one of the areas we're relatively okay in.
The man you're thinking of is Lewis Kumas, who is on loan at Stoke at the minute, and apparently he's of interest, according to the Mail, from Sheffield United, West Brom, and Watford. Would be an interesting one. He's actually played against us this season at the start for Stoke City. I think he's the son of Jason Kumas, is it? I think it is. But anyway, he played. Yeah, Jason Kumas, that's the one. But yeah, he plays for Liverpool, and Watford have been linked with a move for him, but we don't know anything more there. But looking ahead to Fulham, Sam, the Marco Silva derby, if you want to call it that. I don't know if we could call it that, but look, it's Tom Cleverley coming up against his former head coach. A trip to Craven Cottage, which is always nice. A trip to the banks of the River Thames, and look, Marco Silva is doing a fantastic job at Fulham. It feels like a really good fit where he's taking them up from the Championship to the Premier League. They'll be looking to maybe sneak into a European spot this season alongside Bournemouth, as we mentioned at the top of the show. And brilliantly, I think it's 4,000, 5,000 Watford fans are going to be at Craven Cottage selling out that away end. So what's your expectations going into tomorrow, Sam? Tom Cleverley said it's an audition for some of the players, which means and almost suggests that he's going to rotate it to an extent. How much do you think he will rotate it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an opportunity for a few players on the fringes, like Tom Cleverley said. I think we'll probably see the likes of Duemo play, Tikvich, and potentially even Doumbia start. It's quite difficult because of how small of a squad it is. I think we're not going to see potentially a complete full rotation. I fully expect, two of the back three to potentially be Sierralta and Porteous potentially. I don't think, to be honest with you, Matty Pollock is someone I wouldn't play. He's played so many minutes this season. Give him a break. Imran Loza, Rapamine Kosovo, we can't afford for him to get injured as well when he's carrying a knock. The big news, for me at least, I know he's not back for Fulham, but Tom Dele-Bashiru should be back for the Cardiff game, which I think is absolutely massive for us. So yeah, I think we'll see rotations in there. And yeah, hopefully we've still got enough to give Fulham a good game, because I think they're going to eye up an opportunity here to potentially go on a cup run and potentially play some of their fringe players into form. And some of those still have some really, really big quality. I expect the likes of Emil Smith-Rowe to play tomorrow, who obviously, as a player, we know how good he is from his time at Arsenal. So a difficult game tomorrow, but hopefully we can stay in the game for as long as we can.
Yeah, Cleb's mentioned that it's coming out of a period of 5 games in 12 or 13 days for Watford, so he's going to have to rotate. They don't have the luxury to rotate to play the same players that we normally do for the Championship game. But look, more than 4,000 Watford fans are going to be at Fulham. This is a Fulham team who are 9th in the Premier League table. They're unbeaten in 8, so it is a tough task. But he mentioned that Duomo, Doumbia, Tikvich, I expect all of them to see the pitch at some point tomorrow. So look, an opportunity for those guys to make an impression. Sam, score predictions?
Does it go straight to extra time, doesn't it? I actually think we could sneak a draw, but then I think we'll come unstuck in extra time. I think I'm going to go 1-1 in normal time, but 3-1 to Fulham after extra time.
Yeah, I think Fulham might just have a bit too much for us, especially if we do rotate it, because I think their second string is going to be better than our second string. So I think Fulham will win 3-1 in normal time, but I think Watford will take the lead. That's my hot take. Sam, any final?
Bit of carnage behind the goal. That's all we want.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I'll never forget when we went to City, the Etihad, and we took the lead. I think it was in the burgundy kit.
Yeah,
Troy
we went 2-0 up. Troy and Forestieri. And yeah, I don't think that was the best day for Jonathan Bond in goal from memory.
But my word, the away end when that second goal went in was absolute chaos. I remember I got Doyley's shirt at the end because my dad said go to the front, see if I could get a shirt. I was like, how old would I have been? 2013. I would have been 13 at the time. Went to the front. Lloyd's pointed me out. He's picked me out. And that, I know I'm not there today, but when I'm at home, in the background, you always see that Doyley shirt. That is the one, the match-worn shirt. And I remember on the train home having a smell of it, and I just thought, Lloyd, that was he put it this way, he put a shift in. That's all I'm going to say. Sam, any final thoughts, mate, before we wrap up?
No, looking forward to it. Like you say, sold out Watford end. Probably going to have the whole stand behind the goal tomorrow. Just get behind the boys. It's a tough game. But yeah, hopefully we can spring a cup upset.
So it's Fulham tomorrow night. If you're listening to this after the Fulham game, let us know your thoughts on anything we discussed here today. And then it's a trip to Cardiff up next for the Hornets next Tuesday. So the games are kind of starting to space out a little bit after the next week or so, but it's been a busy period for Watford. We'll see how we get on in the third round of the FA Cup against Fulham this Thursday. I do love the FA Cup, especially I think I appreciate it more now we're at the Premier League, and a trip to Fulham. I'm a little bit, I have to admit, my one sort of annoyance with this fixture, though, is the fact it is on a Thursday. I think this would have been a belter of a 3 p.m. on a Saturday, having the whole day, make your way down to Hammersmith, walk over to Putney, banks of the River Thames, a few pints. I think that was what it was made for. But look, hey, Thursday night after work, I'm sure it'll be a good one. More than 4,000 Watford fans that I said, as I'll be there tomorrow. Sam, are you there tomorrow?
I will be there tomorrow. Can't wait.
Good. Okay, if you see us, come and say hello. We'll have a drink, have a good time. Hopefully Watford can get a result. But if not, we will be there anyway. Take care of yourselves, guys. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. Comment down below your thoughts on anything we discussed here today. Drop us a 5-star review if you are listening on audio. Subscribe to the channel. We'll have some very, very exciting content coming shortly. We'll have an update on the Mental Health World Cup. Thank you so much for all the lovely comments and all the interest on that so far. It's overwhelming and genuinely blown our mind how it's taken off there. So we'll have more updates coming soon on that one. But also, Sam did a very, very exciting interview yesterday, which is one to look out for on the channel. So make sure you do subscribe, turn on your post notifications, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys, and up the audits. You want.